Hello, I'm Reggie Alexander with Polly's Pleasures Jewelry, and I'm going to create a series of short informational videos to teach you how to do chainmail. This first video is just kind of an introductory video to kind of give some of the history of chainmail, some common nomenclature, and if you're a retailer who has purchased our products for your store, it's a good source of point of sale information on ways to improve your sales with our product. Our product is a great product, it's high quality, and has great customer service. We stand behind every piece that we make. But it's good to know some little tricks and information to help sell it. It is a niche market, but it is a growing fad again, which is thankful. But things that you can do to increase your sales, the easiest and first and foremost one, get it in their hands. If people are touching it, they are probably 50 to 80% more likely to buy the piece. And we've done more than 200 shows at this point. I've been doing this for 10 years, and that's the experience that we've had. It is a very tactile jewelry form. Even though all the weaves are made of the same material, each weave has a very distinctive feel to it, and a lot of it feels a lot softer than people would expect. Some of it, like the European 4-in-1 pieces like these, I mean, you run those over your fingers, they feel almost like a silk. It's really pretty an amazing thing. But if you can get it in your hands, your sales will go up significantly. And that leads a good point. We're going to start on some history of chainmail. That way you know where it came from and where it is today. It is an ancient art form that started in the 14th century with the Scythians in the Middle East. And when the Romans came and started doing what Romans did, they encountered the Scythians and conquered them eventually, and they learned this technique of armor. It was a very effective form of armor against blows. It wasn't so good for the stabbing part, but for slashes and bashes and things, it did a great job. It didn't necessarily stop injuries because you would still have all that energy to spread out over a wider area. So you'd still get the nasty bruising and the broken bones and things, but you wouldn't have your arm cut off, for example, or the bleeding and infections and all of those types of issues. So it was a very effective form of armor. As the Romans continued their conquest, the Celts discovered it and became involved with making it. It spread out to the Japanese, who did their own style with it, the Middle Eastern areas, who did their own style with it, the Europeans, who did their own thing with it, and it became a wide source of income for certain craftsmen. But it required a great deal of skill. A chainmail artisan back in the day, an armorer, was in high demand because it was hard to make. What they would have to do is take the raw metal, draw it through a wire. I'm drawing a blank on the word. A wire mold, if you will. It's essentially a block with a little hole through it, and they would draw the wire through it and make the wire. Then they spindle it onto a spindle, which is just a rod, so it's all a uniform shape and size and diameter and everything. Take a chisel, come through and break each one of the rings off. Then they would take and hammer. The ring would look something like this at that point. Did you see that? So they would take the little ends that are open here and hammer those ends flat, take a heated punch and punch a hole in each one of them, weave it into the pattern, close it back up where those two holes overlapped, put a rivet through it, and hammer the rivet shut. And they would do that for every single ring. And for the shirts that they would wear, they were called hauberks. It would be a full-length shirt down to just past your groin, full sleeves. There are thousands and thousands of rings. So it would take a considerable amount of time and effort to make one shirt. As technology improved and they were able to speed up the process, it became less and less expensive. So it went from just the knights and the nobility to having it to where they could do it on the men-at-arms, the foot soldiers. It worked very, very well up until the advent of gunpowder. Once gunpowder was invented, chainmail armor kind of became a moot point because it's not bulletproof. But it still worked really well against a lot of the other hand-to-hand combat type stuff. Once it was no longer a viable, but it was very heavy, so it's hard to fight in. But once it became less desirable to have this type of armor due to gunpowder and the frequency of gunpowder, urban legend has it that William Shakespeare helped convert it from armor into stage jewelry. I have no idea if this statement is true, but it makes a great story and people love hearing it. So that's kind of a fun little thing to say. As to nomenclature, I mentioned weaves earlier. Chainmail can be done in hundreds of different patterns. Each pattern is called a weave. We've renamed all of the weaves on our website for marketing purposes, but I'll tell you a little bit about each. When I go through the instructional videos how to make each one, I'll go through and tell you what the real name or the generally accepted name is and then what ours is, so that you can look it up online if you wish, and you can use it for reordering and what have you. All of it is made one ring at a time by us by hand, or one of our family members. To do this, it requires two simple tools. These are bent nose pliers. They're very, very simple to use. They have little bent noses, you can see. It takes one in each hand to do the craft. There is a ring that you can get that you put on. It has little slits in it, and you can replace one of the pliers with those if you wish. Everything is made out of these little rings of various sizes and diameters. With rings, you have two things. You have the diameter of the wire, which is how thick the wire is, and then the diameter of the wire, and it usually refers to the inner diameter, which is from the inside wall straight across to the inside wall, or the outer diameter, which is the outside of the ring to the outside of the ring, straight across. If you ever order your own rings, those are important things to know. Diameter is how big the wire is. The smaller the number, the bigger the wire. So a 24 gauge wire, for example, is much, much tinier and thinner and more delicate than a 12 gauge wire. 12 gauge wire is pretty heavy duty. These are 16 gauge, and you can kind of see the size that they are. 12 gauge would be just about twice that size almost. The other things that you will need are tool dip, which are small mason jars to put the tool dip in. The tool dip comes in a tall container of about so big around. Sold at most hardware stores often in the paint department. It's called tool dip. It's used to insulate pliers and things. We use it on the very ends of our pliers. You can see the black part on the pliers there. That's tool dip. Once tool dip starts to get chewed up, as you use it, it'll get all chewed up and tore up in here. So you just take your fingernail, it'll be all tore up in the plastic part. You take your fingernail or something and you pull it off. So you peel that black off until you have back to your normal bare pliers. 1 can of tool dip will fit in these little bitty mason jars, about 3 of them to 1 can. If you don't do this, it dries out in the can pretty quickly and you waste your money. It's about $8 a can, but if you put them in these little mason jars, you can use them for weeks. And it's awesome. It really works well. So to use it, you just open it up, dip your pliers into it until you've covered the ends, kind of tap off the excess, okay, you'll get little stringers like that kind of hanging off of them. That's okay. Don't worry about that. And then what you can do is you'll take anything. Paper plates work really well. And you just kind of stack it like that to where your tips are off, and just leave it like that for a few hours and it'll dry. Once it is dried, just come back to those little stringers. They'll be dried now. Take fingernail clippers, clip them off, and you're ready to go. They work out really well. Let me set that off to the side to dry there. We do that for a very simple reason. We mostly work in anodized aluminum, which are colored rings. You can get them from the Ring Lord, and that's all one word, theringlord.com, if you'd like to get your own rings. If you're working for us and you're one of our ring monkeys, which is not a derogatory term to anybody that may say that, a ring monkey is just somebody who works for someone else making chainmail. It's just an easy, like an apprentice kind of. Except apprentices often aren't paid, and ring monkeys often are. Not a lot, but they get paid. I lost where I was going with this. Sorry. Anyway, it's very simple. It doesn't require a lot of tools. The nomenclature, like I said, is the weaves are the patterns. The tools are 2 bent nose pliers, tool dip, which is our friend. That's where I was. We use the tool dip to protect the rings. If you use just bare pliers, excuse me. If you use just bare pliers, you have a chance to scratch and scuff the rings. And that shows. We want to have a quality product. So we use the tool dip on ours, and it protects the ring. So as you're working, you're not scuffing it up, you're not marring the finish at all, and you have a very pretty product at the end of what you're doing. Something that looks, you know, like this. So you'll have a nice quality product. For us, to kind of go over the last bit we'll do on this video is just a little bit of the, like I said, the nomenclature. We have the rings, we have the tools, we have the tool dip, we have the weaves, and then what the weaves are. And you'll find in Chainmail, everybody kind of has their own name for each weave. There are some standard weaves, Byzantine, for example, which is this one right here. That is probably one of the most common chainmail weaves you'll find in the world. But it has a lot of different names. Byzantine, X's and O's, Knots of Hercules, and for us, we call it a Camelot. We had to change the names of all the weaves for marketing purposes for our website. So for us, it's a Camelot. If you take and change it just a little bit, you can make a double Camelot, which is the same weave, but all the spaces where the rings are, it's all doubled. There are ones like Stairway to Heaven, like so. This is a common little, if you can see that there, a 3x3 weave. So every section has three rings into 3 rings on either side. We call it an El Dorado. They have very simple ones like this, which is a Mobius, but we call it Eden. All of our weaves have a mystical name of some sort. We'll get into all the rest of them. The Avalon, which is the common European 4-in-1. This is how the Europeans made their armor. Their armor was actually like this, and we call it Avalon. If you were the king, where every ring is, it would be 2 rings, because he had the money to pay twice the product. And for us, that would be Lioness. And then the other main style for clothing type stuff was the Japanese weaves. And this is one of them, if you can kind of see that, which is a Japanese 6-in-1. And the way the Japanese would use it, the Europeans would make it and use it as armor itself. The Japanese would use it as a framework for armor, and they would hang little metal plates on it. And then, you know, that was the armor itself. The other weave, just like that, if you look at the Japanese 6-in-1 and you doubled every single ring, it becomes a Japanese 12-in-2. And that's used for very decorative artwork, or for, again, the Emperor's armor would have had that because it was more durable, more sturdy. Some of the other things you might need to know if you're a retailer, and the questions that people commonly ask is, all of our chainmail is free of nickel and free of zinc, so it is hypoallergenic. The majority of metal allergies that people have is nickel, but none of our chainmail has any nickel in it. None of the rings have any nickel in it. The next question you get asked a lot is, will it turn my skin black or green? No, it will not. Ours is all anodized aluminum, which means that they essentially take the ring, put it in an acid salt bath, run electricity through it, and electroplate the color onto the ring essentially. So it insulates the ring completely. So the metal, the aluminum in it, will not oxidize, which is where the rust or the grime that comes off on many necklaces are. So all of ours are hypoallergenic. If it has rubber in it, it's an EDPM rubber, which means it has no sulfur in it. So again, it's hypoallergenic. Has no nitrile in it, so again, it's hypoallergenic. What else do people ask? Can I wear it in water? All of ours can be worn in water. We never take our jewelry off. We've had it in the ocean, the hot tub, the shower, the pool, the shower every day. We never take ours off. Will the color wear off? Is another common question you'll get. The color will wear off eventually, but it takes a lot of time for that color to wear off. Again, like I said, we never take ours off, and most of the time, depending on your biochemistry of your skin, the color will remain for years. When it does start to fade, finally, it will start to fade and kind of give it more of a denim look, but it doesn't come off. Let's see. All of our products come with a guarantee. If it ever breaks or has a problem come off, you send it back to us. We repair it free of charge and then mail it right back to the customer. And the difference between our chainmail and a lot of other chainmail out there, and you can tell the difference between good chainmail and bad chainmail by how good the closures on the rings are. We're very particular about the closures on our rings, and if you're one of our ring monkeys, this is why. The difference between good chainmail and bad chainmail is the closures. If you have bad chainmail, It will catch your skin, it'll scratch you, it'll catch your clothes, it'll catch your hair, it'll pull your hair. Ours doesn't do that. If your ring closure is tight and clean so that it doesn't have burrs on it, which it comes from having it off center, then you have good closures and good chainmail. If you have any other questions, be sure and hit us up at pollyspleasures@hotmail.com. That's Polly's, POLYSPLEASURES @hotmail.com, or check out our website at pollyspleasures.com. Thank you.